kind of a wing it kind of guy, and you're kind of like a plan it kind of guy.
You should think a little.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Know when to slow down.
Just a little bit.
But then also speed up. You
bit.
can't just stop, but you gotta slow down, speed up, slow down, speed up.
What's going on, guys? Got a fun show for you guys today. I'm really excited about it. Finally have dragged the donor or the donut. We finally have dragged out the motor that's going in to the Trooper. And the reason that we're doing that is we're gonna start measuring, because I feel like that's the next step. Got the motor out of the parts Trooper, which is behind garage door number 1. And then we have parts Trooper here, or real Trooper here. But I don't wanna start taking that thing apart. I want it to stay running. I wanna be able to move it around. I wanna be able to drive it. Well, I still can. This thing is a beast. I've had this motor sitting around for, I don't know, probably almost 20, somewhere between 15 and 20 years, waiting for something that I can swap it into. 28,000 miles on it, which is baby life for a TDI. This thing can run a hell of a lot longer than that. I took the turbo off for another TDI that I had and ended up swapping that out. So we need to find a turbo for it, which means maybe we should just find a bigger turbo. Anyway, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna pull the bell housing off of this block, and then we've got the parts Trooper motor all the way in the back, shoved in the corner. But Brandon's gonna come over. We're gonna do some measurements because we need to look at the flywheel. That's gonna be our biggest issue. For me, in my mind, there's 2 issues. 1, the starter is a pain in the ass. On this transmission right here, you've got this hole right here. What this is where the starter bolts up. On the Trooper, that hole is on the engine block. So that's gonna be one really big hurdle. I don't know how to approach that. Probably gonna have to make some sort of bracket. The other issue is the flywheel situation. Obviously, a Volkswagen TDI and an Isuzu Trooper do not have the same clutch. So we're gonna have to figure out some sort of way to make the clutch and flywheel work together. We have an input shaft on the transmission that's gonna need to line up distance-wise from the engine block here forward. There's gonna need to be some custom stuff done. In order to do that, Brandon and I are going to have to do a few measurements. This is an ALH, is the engine code for this engine. It is from a 2002, 2001 Volkswagen Golf TDI. They have around 90 horsepower, I think 150 pound-feet of torque at like 1 RPM. I mean, they make all kinds of torque. But you can do a lot of things to them to make them a little bit faster, a little more powerful, have them have a little bit more torque. And the best part about this is not only the torque, but the fuel economy. The Trooper right now is getting around 10, 12 miles per gallon. I should probably be getting 30 in this, plus reliability. I don't have this horrible Japanese engine management system anymore with all the vacuum lines that are just absolutely horrible. This is going to be way easier to find parts for, way more reliable, plus it's in my wheelhouse. I know these engines really well. All right, so this is the engine we're pulling out of here. I have no idea what the engine code is. It's horrible. It's a horrible engine. I'm sure it was great when it was new, but it's got 120 horsepower, like 150 pound-feet of torque. It's a 4-cylinder, 2.6 liter, which if you think about it, I guess in 1991, probably not too bad. But now, as it's antiquated, it doesn't work. There's too many vacuum lines. There's enough vacuum lines that the vacuum system is a computer all on its own. So this will be great to get rid of in terms of simplifying to a system that can be scanned and you can get parts for much more easily than you can this thing. All right, let's get the bell housing off this TDI so we can have it ready to go when Brandon gets here, and maybe we can go grab the other motor from the back and put them next to each other so we can do a little bit of easy comparison to see just how much of a shit show this entire swap is going to be. Yeah. All right. While we're waiting for Brandon, let's take a look at the condition of this motor. Low miles, we've got everything we need. We've got a harness, we've got an ECU, we've got an air conditioning compressor, because this thing's got to have AC, right? Here comes the candy delivery. I'm not sure you're going to be able to hear me over the sound of my neighbor blowing his leaves onto my yard. I
have an extra motor stand. I know you have that yellow one.
No, I don't have any motor stands. Motor stand? Isn't it an engine stand? Motors are like,
Whatever.
Motors are electric.
Jesus
Engines
Christ, it's all the same fucking thing.
No, it's not.
Tomato. Fuck it. You know what I'm talking about.
Okay, Al Gore. Whatever, dude. Oh, wait, it wasn't Al Gore, was it? It was some other guy. Oh, there it is.
That's a motor. Yeah, we need to get this up there because we're going to want to put them next to each other, and we need to measure.
We need to measure all kinds of shit.
We have a lot of measurements to take.
All right. You were bragging on this trailer when we first picked up the truck. Let's look at this trailer. This trailer is so sick.
No,
this trailer sucks, man. You good?
Yeah. Better than it was.
All right. So what's awesome is when you make wrong assumptions about things and work that you thought you were going to have to do doesn't even happen. It's like making progress. We thought that the transmission bolts to the block, but it doesn't. It bolts to this plate.
The starter.
Our starter. So yeah, sorry about that. And we thought that the slave cylinder bolted to the motor, but it doesn't. Those bolts to the transmission.
Bolts like right here, but it kind of like it was like here and covered all this up, so you couldn't really see. Also,
it was like midnight.
It was 11:30 midnight
in the
we
dark.
were tired and we were laying in puddles of oil. So
what do you mean we?
Well, yeah,
it was me.
Yeah, you. I've laid in enough puddles of oil. I got my oil cred, dude.
You've earned that merit badge?
Yeah, trust me. Good enough.
Oh, shit! Driveway's an incline. Ready?
Yep.
What are we looking at this thing for? This is all bolted in. We don't need any of this.
We're doing a comparison. I'm just trying to visualize potential future issues here of like things that we're gonna have clearance issues with. And the first thing I'm noticing is the position of the alternator on the ALH is gonna potentially interfere with the drag link right here. And I think the AC compressor is gonna be fine. But then the one other thing I'm a little concerned about is starter, intake, turbo. So on this engine, the exhaust is on this side. So this is a cross flow head. ALH, counterflow, all on the same side. So we have heat sources next to the starter. Now, I think we have enough clearance, but it's, we're just looking at potential issues.
Yeah, well, we got to put it in there and just find out. I was telling everybody I'm kind of a wing it kind of guy, and you're kind of like a plan it kind of guy. I'm like, let's get this adapter plate done, let's bolt everything in, throw it in the truck, and then see what we need to do. That seems like that's the right option.
Well,
right?
I think the right option is you got to be halfway between, because what you can't overthink things until you're paralyzed and you don't do anything. But you also need to think a little. You should think a little.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Know when to slow down.
Just a little bit.
But then
just
also speed up. You can't just stop, but you gotta slow down, speed up, slow down, speed up.
Speed up all the time.
Potential things I'm seeing is the battery might need to move to this side just to make room for this stuff. But then we're also losing all of this. All of this becomes irrelevant. Like every single thing in this corner, this whole corner of the engine bay completely opens up.
What I see is height. I see like at least 6 inches of height. So if we need to come up off the drag link or anything like that, the whole assembly can come up.
And if you actually look here, the ALH is actually shorter. EGR is going to go away. And this is actually going to get simplified even from what this is right now.
Right.
So.
Well, let's start measuring some shit. That's what we're really up to. What? Everything's a hammer, dude. Everything's a hammer.
No, everything is not a hammer.
That's a hammer, though.
A hammer's a hammer. Wow,
that's pretty heavy duty, man.
Dude, everything on this truck is built more heavy duty than it needs to be.
Action.
Dude, look at this. Look at these fucking. For how many foot-pounds of torque does this motor have?
Like 150.
yeah. This is more than an LS. This is like more than a GM LS engine. Wider pattern, more bolts.
This thing is beefy.
Yeah. Just they forgot to add the power.
And a head gasket.
You think this thing? Yeah, the head gasket.
There's no way, dude. Beefy. No way. No chance.
Lots of bolts, low torque.
Yeah, I guess that's.
All right, so let's just flop this up here and see where we're at. Cause I'm thinking more than likely, we're gonna probably end up making a custom flywheel.
Yeah, the center bore is obviously.
Center bore is way different. Yeah, bolt pattern's totally different, but
size-wise, they're very similar. If not smaller.
This is going to be the perfect piece to get a pattern from, and it's nice and thick and heavy duty.
That's our template.
It looks like it's potentially compatible. You know, there's certain applications where you go, this is not even possible due to just differences in sizes, but this looks very feasible.
All right, so we got to get a custom flywheel made. So we need to measure this stuff. We need to measure the center bore of this, find out what the center bore of this is, find out what this bolt pattern is, which is a one-way bolt pattern. These two are smaller than the rest of these, because that way everything goes on one way because it's all balanced. But that's the stuff we need to measure. The most important thing, though, is the spacing so that the throwout bearing is going to work.
Correct.
That's it. I mean,
correct.
because
this height needs to be the height.
Because there's no. We should probably look at the transmission, but I didn't see any shims or anything like that.
No, there's no adjustment
to adjust it at all.
And luckily, the other issue I'm seeing here that's going to be good for us is this is probably going to end up being thicker due to the adapter plate.
Yeah.
But I also don't think this bearing. I think the TDI crank ID is going to be too small to have because these ones use an unsupported. Input shaft. You look at the. All right, show you what he's talking about. All right, so when you look at this, so this is an unsupported setup.
So
there's nothing being supported by.
There's no bearing. There's no
connection between the transmission input shaft and the engine's crankshaft. It
only touches the clutch. When you look at the Trooper over here, you've got this bearing here, which is basically almost like a pilot bearing that sits here. And
it's not basically like a pilot bearing, it is a pilot bearing.
The input shaft sits in this hole and it rotates here on this. So that's.
And then if we look at the transmission input shaft, you can see that the shiny area where that was riding on that bearing.
Does it need that support for some reason? Or can we just let that ride?
You know, that's one of those things where I always default to do whatever the engineers that designed the transmission did, because you don't know how they. You can see here, see how this input shaft, you unbolt this front cover and the whole thing pulls out. That input shaft might just be like a stub shaft with a gear reduction, versus the Volkswagen, that input shaft
goes through the whole transmission.
Goes through the whole transmission. So if the person that designed this transmission designed it to use.
If the person that designed this transmission designed the rest of that engine management on there, we should do whatever we want, because that sucks.
Hey, you can do whatever you want. I just think that the safest approach is.
So then we need to find a custom bearing that is then going to sit in the nose of this crank.
And the problem I'm seeing there is
that is very small diameter.
That's too small of an ID. So we'll probably end up putting that bearing in the flywheel itself. So the input shaft probably won't extend into the crank at all. It'll be out here, because we're gonna add likely
this sucks.
This
sounds hard.
This is really technical stuff. I mean, there's a reason that nobody makes this kit, because there's kits for
there's kits for everything.
There's kits for the Cherokee, Wrangler, 4Runner, Toyota truck, S10, Ranger.
All which are way lamer.
Yeah, there's kits for almost every other mini truck made, except this one.
All right, well, let's start taking some measurements. We've said that like 5 times and haven't done it yet. like that's like, let's just leave it for later. Maybe it'll be fine, maybe it won't. All right, we've got that. Tiny little
Now,
girly turbo.
hold the starter. That's roughly where this is gonna be. That's the problem.
Perfect. It's all lined up.
So that's a big problem.
Can we flip this over? No.
No.
All right. That's not gonna work. Okay.
So I think my dreams of not using the VNT 17 are gonna come true just from the fact that that turbo literally will not work.
You can't use it. It's not an option
So
at
this
all.
is an integrated manifold turbo setup. So there's no modifying this.
All right, for anybody that doesn't know, when you say VNT turbo, what do you mean? What is VNT? Variable?
VNT is a variable vane turbo. So this lever moves a bunch of little fingers that go like
That's
this.
this lever right here.
So the exhaust gases come in here, and the fins go no boost, full boost, or ins full
So
boost.
basically, the veins inside the turbo do this, just for making
Vanes
more or less
go like
boost.
this.
Yeah.
So there's wastegated turbos, there's VNT turbos, and there's VGT turbos.
And this helps with lag too.
These are much less laggy than a wastegated turbo. These build boost faster, they regulate boost better, they're more efficient, they're better all the way around. Everything, all the TDIs use VNT turbos.
But for our purposes, we can't use it. So
we're gonna go to. But this is great news for me because now we get to use the turbo I want to use.
Which means bigger turbo.
Which means bigger turbo, which means lower EGTs.
I know. It's just,
Yeah, I mean, I just want it to be reliable. You know, it's gonna suck if you do all this work and then the thing blows up, melts a piston
All right.
or something.
Now there's just one more thing to buy. That's fine. No
That's
big
fine.
deal.
Well, you gotta remember too, you have great aerodynamics. The aerodynamics of this vehicle are excellent.
We're gonna write these measurements down in legible handwriting, which they aren't now, and we're gonna see what we can do about getting some of this stuff custom made. We'll see you guys next week. Mash that subscribe button, like, share. We would really appreciate it. Brandon, thanks for coming over.
we will see you next time.
All right, buddy. Later. We can
You
totally
look like a calendar model right now.